I'm obviously his advocate. I've seen what he's done.
To make America great again.
A very long flight, but I'm here in Baku, Azerbaijan. Check it out, view from my balcony.
What if the real power in the Trump family isn't loud but effortlessly poised? Not the billionaire builder, not the political firestorm, but the daughter who walks with silence and reigns with style. Ivanka Trump, first daughter. Global brand, heiress to a legacy wrapped in gold and guarded by influence. In a family known for commanding the spotlight, Ivanka mastered the art of commanding the room without ever needing to raise her voice. Born into one of America's most polarizing and powerful dynasties, Ivanka has never simply been the daughter of Donald Trump. She's been the diamond of the dynasty, the polished one, the refined symbol of Trump power reimagined in heels, silk, and strategy. Where her brothers brought brashness, she brought balance. Where others clashed with cameras, she captivated them. As the world watched Trump Tower rise and campaigns unfold, Ivanka carved her own path, quietly, elegantly, becoming a symbol of billionaire femininity in a world still trying to define it. She wasn't born into royalty, but her presence has always carried the elegance of a princess raised in gold. Her posture? Perfect. Her tone? Controlled. Her look? Impeccable. Whether striding through Manhattan's Fifth Avenue or entering the White House, Ivanka Trump moved with a presence that said, this isn't just legacy, it's leadership. A golden thread between fashion, finance, and political finesse. A woman born into wealth, but groomed for global diplomacy. And while many daughters of presidents fade quietly behind the scenes, Ivanka became the face of a new kind of American dynasty. One defined not by chaos, but by calculated charm. She turned silence into strength, luxury into language, and being a Trump into a brand of her own. From the corridors of real estate power to state dinners with foreign leaders, Ivanka wasn't just present, she was prepared. She knew when to speak, when to smile, and when to disappear, only to reemerge more influential than before. In her, the Trump name found something unexpected, subtlety. A daughter who didn't echo her father, but elevated the family's name through elegance. And in a world obsessed with volume, that silence was its own kind of power. This is more than a story about politics or privilege. It's a portrait of curated grace, a quiet empire wrapped in Chanel, and a woman who understood early that legacy isn't something you inherit, it's something you shape. Welcome to the diamond of the dynasty. Welcome to the lavish, secretive life of Ivanka Trump. Bloodline and brilliance. She wasn't just born into wealth, she was born into a brand. Ivanka Trump's life began not in an ordinary hospital room, but in a penthouse floating high above Manhattan, on the 68th floor of Trump Tower. Her childhood wasn't measured in toys, but in square footage and skyline views. From day one, she was surrounded by marble floors, gold-plated elevators, and a quiet hum of private security. This wasn't a childhood. It was an empire waiting for its heiress. As the first daughter of Donald and Ivana Trump, Ivanka inherited more than just a last name. She inherited a legacy forged in ambition, wealth, and spectacle. But her refinement came from something more. Ivana Trump, a Czech-born former Olympic skier and high fashion model, instilled in Ivanka a sense of discipline, elegance, and resilience. From her mother, she inherited a European flair for poise and presentation. From her father, ruthless business instinct, an understanding that the Trump name was not just a signature, but a signature move. Together, Donald and Ivana didn't just raise a daughter, they crafted a public figure, a future brand ambassador of the Trump empire. By age 10, Ivanka was already in front of cameras, not as a child star, but as an emerging symbol of next-generation Trump power. When other teenagers worried about dance recitals, Ivanka was modeling for Versace. When others debated college choices, she had already shaken hands with presidents and billionaires. Her education? Impeccably selected. First, the elite Chapin School in Manhattan, where the daughters of diplomats and media moguls studied etiquette alongside academics. Then Choate Rosemary Hall in Connecticut, a boarding school known for shaping America's elite. There, Ivanka sharpened her intellect, her polish, and her independence. And finally, Wharton at the University of Pennsylvania, the same business school her father attended, the birthplace of real estate empires, hedge funds, and dynastic influence. But Ivanka wasn't there to follow his footsteps. She was there to build her own. By the time she graduated, Ivanka Trump was fluent in more than just languages and finance. She was fluent in the language of power, deals, diplomacy, direction, all delivered in heels and calm assurance. She entered the Trump organization not just as an heir, but as a vice president, one of the few who didn't ask for a seat at the table. Because the table had always been hers. In every boardroom she walked into, there was no need to announce who she was. Her posture said it all. While critics labeled her privilege, insiders knew the truth. Ivanka worked harder than most. She was the first in the office, the last to leave, and the one who never let her last name do all the talking. This was no socialite. This was a strategist raised in skyscrapers. A perfect blend of Eastern elegance and Western ambition. Groomed from birth to lead not just a family, but a global name. The golden shift for years, Ivanka Trump graced society pages as a quintessential New York socialite. Perfectly dressed, flawlessly photographed, and endlessly admired. But what the world didn't see was the shift quietly taking place behind the velvet ropes. Because Ivanka never planned to remain just a headline. She was positioning herself to become history. The turning point? 2009. A wedding not just of love, but of legacy. Ivanka Trump, heiress to a real estate empire, married Jared Kushner, scion of a billion-dollar development dynasty. It wasn't just a union of hearts. It was a merging of two of America's most elite power families. Their wedding, held at the Trump National Golf Club in Bedminster, was a masterclass in quiet luxury. Ivanka wore a custom Vera Wang gown, inspired by Grace Kelly. Diamonds glittered, security tightened, and behind every camera flash was the soft unveiling of a new role for Ivanka, one that went beyond fashion and society. Because in marrying Jared, Ivanka didn't just step into a new family, she stepped into a new identity, one that would eventually place her in the most powerful house in the world. Fast forward to 2016. The Trump campaign was loud, polarizing, unpredictable. But amid the chaos stood Ivanka, elegant, unshaken, and always composed. While others campaigned with megaphones, she influenced behind the curtain, whispers from boardrooms, ideas shaped in quiet meetings. Power moved with polish. And when her father won the presidency, Ivanka Trump stepped into the White House not as a bystander, but as a diplomatic force. She took no official salary, no traditional title, yet her presence was unmistakable, seated beside world leaders, leading women's economic initiatives, representing American interests abroad with a grace the cameras couldn't ignore. She was called the first daughter, yes, but globally, she became known as America's princess, not through entitlement, but through elegance, not through controversy, but through calculated diplomacy. At the G20 summit in Japan, Ivanka was seen conversing with world leaders, Macron, Trudeau, even Lagarde. In the Middle East, she launched female entrepreneurship funds. And in the West Wing, she advised on policy with a voice more powerful than most cabinet officials. Where her father roared, she refined. Where others divided, she attempted to bridge. Critics questioned her role. Supporters called her the calming force of the administration. But regardless of opinion, one thing was clear. Ivanka Trump had redefined the role of a presidential daughter. She was no longer just the image on a campaign stage. She was the strategy behind it. This was no longer the Ivanka of Manhattan galas and Fashion Week seats. This was a woman who had traded runways for run-ins with heads of state. And yet, through it all, she never lost the softness of her brand. She didn't shout. She never needed to, because the most influential woman in the room is often the one who lets the silence speak first. Ivanka's lavish life and empire when the cameras turn away from politics. What remains is pure luxury. And for Ivanka Trump, luxury isn't loud. It's lived softly, behind closed doors made of Italian marble and guarded by silence. Her life flows between three cities, each one iconic, each one carefully chosen. Washington, D.C., New York City, and now a slice of private paradise in Miami. In the capital, Ivanka lives steps from the White House in a $5.5 million Colorama mansion. Diplomatic neighbors, French chandeliers, and a wardrobe that turns State Department stairs into runways. In New York, her Fifth Avenue presence was once marked by a skyline suite in Trump Tower, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Empire State Building like a portrait. But today, her sanctuary lies far from the headlines, tucked within Miami's ultra-exclusive Billionaire bunker. Indian Creek Island, Ivanka, Jared, and their children now reside among tech moguls and foreign royalty. Their $24 million waterfront estate offers sweeping views of the Atlantic, private docks, and layers of security that rival Head's estate. Yet, even in this serenity, her style speaks volumes. Her closet? A curated museum of elegance. Chanel blazers for diplomatic appearances. Oscar de la Renta florals for spring in Palm Beach. Dior silks for private dinners only a few are ever invited to. Each look intentional. Each silhouette a message. Ivanka doesn't just wear fashion. She uses it as quiet punctuation for power. But the wardrobe is only part of the story. At one point, Ivanka wasn't just a style icon. She was an entrepreneur reshaping fashion on her terms. As head of the Ivanka Trump collection, she built a brand that stood at the crossroads of business and femininity. From affordable heels to minimalist handbags, the line was carried in major retailers across America, Nordstrom, Macy's, and Bloomingdale's. It wasn't just a fashion line. It was a message to modern women. You could be ambitious. You could be elegant. You could own the room. At its peak, the Ivanka Trump brand generated over $100 million in annual revenue. It was worn by professionals, praised by editors, and backed by her signature presence. But when political tides shifted, so did priorities. In 2018, she made the decision to shut it down, choosing diplomacy and family over business margins. Yet, the empire lives on in her investments, in her influence, and in the quiet way she navigates billionaire spaces with ease. From art auctions in Palm Beach to charity galas in Manhattan, Ivanka remains part of an inner circle where access is limited and elegance is currency. Private jets, personal chefs, sunrise yoga on secluded terraces. Her life is not one of excess. It is one of selection. She chooses where to be seen. And more importantly, where not to be. Because true power in Ivanka's world doesn't have to be broadcasted. It only has to be felt. Philanthropy, faith, and femininity when the cameras dim and the microphones fall silent. Ivanka Trump's world doesn't vanish. It transforms. Beyond the headlines, beyond the high heels and polished boardrooms, lives a quieter Ivanka, one guided not by press, but by purpose, not by platform, but by personal conviction. Her elegance may be public, but her values are deeply private. In 2009, ahead of her marriage to Jared Kushner, Ivanka made a decision that would shape not just her life, but her legacy. She converted to Orthodox Judaism, not as performance, but as a personal journey, quietly studied, humbly embraced. In a world that demanded visibility, Ivanka chose devotion. From kosher kitchens to Friday night Shabbat dinners, her faith became the unseen rhythm of her life. Every week, she lights candles, disconnects from phones, reconnects with family. While the world watches her in political arenas, Ivanka is also the woman leading blessings at home, wrapping her children in tradition, warmth, and quiet strength. 3 children, 1 sacred table, and a moment each week where the world fades away. But even in faith, Ivanka's focus remained outward. During her time in the White House, she led one of the administration's most impactful nonpartisan initiatives, Women's Global Development and Prosperity, WGDP. It wasn't a headline magnet. It wasn't built for political gain. It was about action, real investment in women's economic futures across the globe. From launching entrepreneurial grants in Africa to advocating for women's access to education and capital, Ivanka brought boardroom strategy into global development. This wasn't charity, it was empowerment. Measured, funded, scaled, delivered. She traveled to Côte d'Ivoire, to India, to South America, wearing neutral tones, delivering calm speeches, meeting with women not as celebrity, but as a bridge between worlds. And back in the U.S., her initiative supported paid family leave, vocational training, and STEM access for underserved communities. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't meant to be, because some of the most powerful work is done in silence, in private. She balances another role, the one few see, mother, raising Arabella, Joseph, and Theodore with both discipline and softness, teaching them Hebrew prayers, walking them to school in tailored flats instead of heels, designing a life where legacy and lullabies coexist. Her Instagram may show moments, beach trips, birthdays, family hikes. But the real Ivanka is built between those frames. Quiet, warm, protective. It's a balance many aspire to but few achieve. Boardroom and nursery. Faith and fame. Power and peace. And while others brand themselves as influencers, Ivanka became something rarer, an anchor. She doesn't need to post her prayers or her philanthropy. She doesn't need applause to keep moving forward. Because Ivanka Trump isn't searching for validation. She's living by values, chosen, protected, and passed on through legacy. This is not the story of a woman transformed by power. It's the story of a woman who found her power in stillness. The power she still holds today. Ivanka Trump may have stepped out of the West Wing, but make no mistake, she hasn't stepped away from power. She simply moved it. From marble hallways in Washington to oceanfront sanctuaries in Miami, where influence flows quietly through phone calls, private dinners, and unlisted guest lists. Her new home? A sprawling modernist penthouse nestled within Indian Creek Island, famously known as Billionaire Bunker. Only 40 residents, ultra-wealthy neighbors, private police force. Among them, tech tycoons, international billionaires, and royalty in exile. Here, the gates are tighter, but the networks are wider. Here, Ivanka isn't watched, she's watching. From the South Florida stronghold, she's begun building a new chapter, one that is less public but more potent. No longer obligated to press briefings or political optics, Ivanka's life has become a masterclass in discreet relevance. Off-camera meetings with former ambassadors, quiet alignments with venture capital circles. She isn't lobbying, she's listening. She isn't running for office, she's running strategy. For every gala she skips, there's a conversation the press will never catch. Her name still moves to the rooms that matter, spoken not by pundits, but by CEOs, developers, and decision-makers. Because Ivanka has always understood one thing. Real power doesn't need a stage, it just needs access. At home, she is no less committed. Arabella, Joseph, and Theodore attend private academies. Their schedules are guarded, their lives protected. Weekends mean paddleboarding with Jared, Shabbat dinners, story time in 3 languages. Even as she curates global influence, Ivanka remains grounded in the rituals that shaped her. She's no longer trying to prove herself. She's simply positioning herself. And in today's world, positioning is everything. Occasionally, the world gets a glimpse, a serene Instagram photo, a rare public outing. Every detail polished, intentional. Each post a whisper of relevance, not a plea for attention. Fashion houses still send her samples. Former world leaders still request her presence. And behind the scenes, major political donors still call, just in case she's ready to step back in. Because Ivanka Trump's name remains gold, not just to those who adore her, but to those who understand her value. She doesn't shout. She doesn't chase the spotlight. She's moved beyond it, into a realm where legacy isn't talked about, it's curated, less visible, more vital, less performative, more precise. This isn't an exit, this is an evolution. And in a world still spinning loudly, Ivanka Trump has chosen a rare kind of power, the kind that doesn't need applause to exist. Her legacy in silence. Not every legacy is written in headlines. Some are carved, quietly, into the corridors of influence. Ivanka Trump may have stepped away from the podium, but her story is far from over. If anything, it's entering its most fascinating chapter. She's no longer just a first daughter. She's become the quiet architect of her own empire. In a family known for volume, Ivanka is a counterpoint, poised, polished, and perfectly measured. While the cameras chase controversy, she lives in precision. And while others seek visibility, she cultivates value. Her name no longer needs a title. It simply echoes across boardrooms, investment circles, and high society salons from Palm Beach to Paris. She may never run for office, but she doesn't need to, because her power was never meant to be loud. It was meant to be lasting, like fine perfume, undeniable, invisible, unforgettable. Behind the scenes, she may return to business, quietly relaunching ventures, advising billion-dollar funds, or aligning with global development missions. Or perhaps she's shaping something more enduring, the next generation of Trumps. Arabella, Joseph, and Theodore are growing up surrounded by legacy, yet buffered by intention. And in that sanctuary, Ivanka plays a role few see, but all feel: the guardian of a brand, the matriarch in waiting, the quiet compass behind tomorrow's Trump identity. Because for Ivanka, legacy isn't just what you build, it's what you preserve. She doesn't need to prove herself. She's already mastered what few ever do, the art of remaining relevant by choice, not by chase. Her silence is not absence, it's control. Her elegance, not for show, but for impact. In the swirl of history, Ivanka stands still, unaffected, undeterred, as if to say, let the world spin. I'll remain timeless. She was born into gold, yes, but she's walked it like marble, strong, smooth, unshaken. So as the world continues to guess what comes next, another return to politics, a global business move, a permanent retreat from the spotlight, Ivanka Trump answers only with presence. A presence that doesn't beg to be noticed, a presence that already is. This is not a goodbye. This is a woman stepping further into shadows she's mastered, where real legacy is shaped without noise. In the Trump dynasty of power and flame, she remains a diamond, untouched, unbreakable, timeless. Ivanka Trump, a legacy written in silence.